Hello everybody, Chris Shelton here. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a different video. I'm going to start a series of videos on music theory. So what I'm going to do today is start with the very basics. So we're going to look into intervals, and this is actually going to be the first part of a two-part video on intervals. So I'm going to start out very basic, and we're going to see what intervals are all about. So first of all, we have to ask ourselves the question, what exactly is an interval? Well, that is actually a distance between 2 points, and in music, the points are going to be 2 pitches, or 2 notes. So if you have a C and a D, or an E and an F, something like that, then whatever that distance is, that's going to be an interval. So actually, what we're going to do to discuss intervals is we're going to look into a major scale. And, you know, obviously we, at this point, probably all know what that major scale is all about as far as how it sounds. And we're going to be looking into the C major scale more specifically. Why the C major scale? Well, basically it's just because that's the scale that everyone starts out with. That's the key everyone starts out with on any instrument you learn. When you learn that scale, it will be in C. You will start and end on C. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at that and see what the intervals are all about. So, as a reminder, the musical alphabet has only 7 letters: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And if you wanted to continue beyond G, then you would start over again with A. So, back to the C major scale. The C major scale is going to use the same letters we just talked about, because those are the only letters that we have in our musical alphabet, except with the C major scale we're going to be beginning and ending on C. So the C major scale is spelled as follows: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And then we end where we started, with C. Before we start discussing the intervals, we should do one more thing, and that is number the pitches. Why? Because this way we're more easily able to analyze the scale that we have there and then transfer that to other keys, so we can more easily make comparisons. And especially if you're analyzing music, you'll be able to make comparisons more easily. So once we number these pitches, we can then refer to them as scale degrees. So, you know, just as an example, you would talk about scale degree 1, or scale degree 5, scale degree 6, that kind of thing. So, in our C major scale, C is scale degree number 1, D is scale degree number 2, E is scale degree number 3, and so on, until we reach B, which is scale degree number 7. Now, after B, of course, we will start over with our musical alphabet again. So we'll have C. Now C can be considered 8, or most of the time it's just considered 1. Since we've already had it in our scale and it's been number 1, we'll typically consider that number 1. That you will, most of the time you'll see that in an analysis, a musical analysis, where you find the first pitch of a scale. You're going to consider that 1 no matter if it's, you know, at the beginning of that scale, if it's much higher, if it's much lower. So 1 will typically always just be considered 1, rather than the 8, for instance. Now for the intervals. There are 2 types of intervals we will talk about here: the whole step and the half step. If you look at your guitar, you will see the frets along the entire fretboard. Each fret represents a half step on any given string. For instance, if I play the pitch on the first string on fret number 1, and then play the pitch on the first string on fret number 2, we will hear an interval of a half step. And this continues. Frets 2 to 3, frets 3 to 4, frets 4 to 5, and so on. These are all half steps. The whole step is heard by simply playing one pitch, skipping over the next fret, and playing the pitch 2 frets away. So if I play the pitch on the first string on fret number 1, and then play the pitch on the first string on fret number 3, we will hear an interval of a whole step. This also continues. Frets 3 to 5, frets 5 to 7. We can even go back and play frets 2 and then 4, 4 and then 6, and so on. These are all whole steps. Now, let's dissect the C major scale and see what intervals we find from one pitch to the next. First, I will play C, and now D. We can see that I'm skipping one fret to get from C to D. So this is a whole step. I'll use the letter W here to show whole step. Next, I'll play D and then E. Again, I'm skipping a fret, so there's another whole step. E to F is a little different. I'm not skipping any frets here, so this is going to be a half step. I'll use H in our analysis to show half step. Next is F to G. Again, skipping a fret, so another whole step. Next is G to A, and that's another whole step. Then we have A to B, that's another whole step. And finally, we have B to C. There's no skipped fret here, so this is a half step. And that is the end of our major scale. It is important to remember the series of whole steps and half steps for the major scale because this is true for the major scale regardless of what pitch you begin with. You will always have to maintain this specific series of whole steps and half steps to recreate the major scale. First, remember that the half steps are between the E and F, or to be able to transfer this to any other starting pitch, between scale degrees 3 and 4, and between B and C, or scale degrees 7 and 8, or 1. Now, with that in mind, remember that the full major scale has these intervals in order: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Once you memorize that, you will have no problem figuring out the full major scale on your guitar starting from any pitch. You can also quiz yourself with the scale degrees of each pitch. This could be something like, what is the interval in a major scale between scale degrees 3 and 4? The answer would be a half step. What is the interval between scale degrees 5 and 6? That would be a whole step. You can do the same with the letter names themselves. For instance, what is the interval between C and D? The answer, a whole step. What is the interval between E and F? A half step. Be sure to memorize the C major scale along with our analysis before continuing on with part 2 of my videos on intervals. If you like what you see here, be sure to click the like button down below and subscribe, as I will be posting videos about music theory and guitar each week. Thank you for watching.